Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Thank you for joining us for this talk today. My name is Ceri Regan. I'm Senior Programme Manager at the Data Science Campus at the Office for National Statistics in the UK. And my colleague, Dominika Nowak, is Head of Unit Experimental Research at Statistics Poland. Both of us today are going to share with you some of the outputs and activities from the task team on training, skills and capacity development. The overview for this session is, first off, we're going to be looking at some of the highlights, outcomes from the Institutional Readiness for Big Data in Official Statistics that was undertaken last year. Secondly, we're looking at an NSO Maturity Matrix that is currently in development. Dominika is going to run through the Competency Framework that is now in place, and also will be sharing with you some of the plans for future training provision that are in development. So let's take a look first at the survey, the UN survey that was put out last year to assess NSO readiness for big data in official statistics. We looked at 4 different areas in the assessment. Questions were placed around strategic data science coordination. So we were looking for the plans for any big data analytics that were in place or coming. We were interested in the legal framework for data access and sharing. We were also interested in the IT infrastructure, what the capacity at the NSO is for big data storage and analytics, and also human resources. What are the big data science posts that are currently in place? What are the skills that are in place? And is there any recruitment currently taking place? We issued this assessment to 160 NSOs, a response rate of 63%. Thank you to everyone who responded. So if I can just run through some of the high-level outputs that came from the assessment and highlight some of the main challenges that are faced by many NSOs. But on the whole, the picture was positive. Many NSOs are engaged with big data projects, so there is a positive picture out there. But some of the main challenges for NSOs are around these 4 areas. So obtaining big data sources outside of government is a challenge for many. Legal frameworks are in place, but however, they may need to be updated for the regulation of big data applications. Data storage around the IT infrastructure, data storage off-site or on-site, processing power for many was a challenge, and few NSOs at the time of the study were considering secure cloud. On the 4th point, upskilling of analysts, and this is the preferred approach, by the way, in terms of recruitment of data scientists directly into the NSO. It's a difficult task for many because there is not a huge pot to recruit from. But upskilling of analysts is an option, but most are lacking a competency framework in order to know what skills need to be developed to develop their analysts in that way. So what? What are we going to do now? Well, we're in the process of looking at a big data maturity matrix. This is an NSO level assessment. So looking to produce something that helps the NSO understand its strengths and weaknesses, helps it to identify gaps and possibly develop a roadmap for development. As already mentioned, it came out as an area, a challenge, the lack of a big data competency framework. So our task team has developed one. It has been launched. Dominika is going to run through what this looks like and how you can access it. And also, we're considering what training is required for analysts to upskill them to become data scientists. And again, Dominika will run through the work that is in progress here to think about what training can be put in place. So let me share with you the maturity matrix. This is an NSO level document that will exist. It will be a self-assessment tool for the NSO to determine where it is now and where it wants to be. That should help to inform a plan. The NSO will set its own target. We want to put the power in the hands of the NSO. Not every NSO wants to reach the same level. There will be a set of questions for the NSO to answer, and through answering those, they will be provided with a picture of where it currently is on its big data journey. Any gaps will be identified and should inform an NSO strategic plan. We want to test the maturity matrix before it goes live. We are interested in hearing from NSOs who would like to be part of that test. My email address will be at the end of Dominika's talk. Please get in touch if you'd like to take part. So here's a snapshot of what the maturity matrix will eventually hopefully look like. It's very sparse at the moment. There are 4 dimensions currently contained within the maturity matrix. You can see those down the left-hand side: the legal aspect, IT, human resources, and applications of big data. There are 4 levels identified, currently called pre-foundation, foundation, intermediate, and advanced. And I should say these headings may change. We are still in the process of working through the best format for this. There will be questions within each level and within each cell for the NSO to answer. And once answered, you will be provided with your current level of maturity in big data at your NSO. You set your own target. In this example, I've put it at the intermediate level, and you can then hopefully see some gaps and start planning your way forwards towards your target. That's all I want to say at this stage. I'm going to hand over to Dominika now, who is going to talk through the competency framework and the future training provision. And my email address will be at the end of her talk if you'd like to contact me about the maturity matrix. Thank you very much.
I will try to give you a short overview of the Big Data Competency Framework, which has been designed as general guidelines on building big data competencies at the NSO. Of course, the term Big Data Competencies might be disputable in the first place, as there doesn't exist a universal set of big data skills. We fully acknowledge that, as well as the fact that there are different types of data specialists, such as data engineer, data analyst, data scientist, and so on. And the skills required in these positions might become even more granular and more specific if referred to different data sources. For instance, it is obvious that processing streaming data entails different skills than processing web script data. The same is true for the skills required at different stages of the statistical production process. Finally, if we look at the NSOs across the UN statistical community, it is apparent that they differ a lot as to big data projects they undertake or big data strategies. So these are just a couple of issues that shape the work on the competency framework. They show how complicated it was to conceptualize and put together the framework in such a way that it is as universal and as useful for a large group of diverse NSOs as possible. Keeping this in mind, it was unavoidable to agree to some simplifications, such as, for example, not going into extreme detail or giving up on addressing each specific data source. So this is just a bit of a background. The competency framework we put out involves 2 approaches. The first approach structures big data competencies according to general areas of core and generic skills. The second approach matches the identified competency areas to different stages of the simplified statistical production process. Here are the 7 areas of the core competencies delineated in the framework. We can refer to them as technical competencies. They are ethics and privacy, mathematics, data management, statistics, programming, machine learning, and data visualization. Now, it is fully acknowledged that these areas are not exclusive, and most of them inextricably intertwine some, if not most, of the other areas. For example, programming will be part of data management, machine learning, data visualization, and so on. Here you can see the format each competency area was presented in. It includes 4 dimensions. The first dimension is simply the name of the area. The second one is the description of the key competencies in this area. Next dimension specifies 3 proficiency levels related to the competencies. That is foundation, intermediate, and advanced level. And finally, the 4th dimension breaks down the competency area into the knowledge, skills, and attitude, providing their examples. So here, for example, is the description of the competencies related to data management. I will, of course, not go into detail. The document is available on the UN website, and at the end of the presentation, there will be a direct link to it. So now let's move to the second group of the skills in the competency area approach, which are generic skills. They were definitely recognized as intrinsic to the big data competency landscape. The framework addresses the soft skills, but it should be stressed that due to their nature and a kind of obviousness, they were not the main focus of the framework and are not as much elaborated in the framework as are the core skills. There were distinguished 9 areas of soft skills. Of course, we do not intend to say that this list is exhaustive, and we realize there might be quite a lot of alternatives here, but after a few rounds of consultations across the NSOs and the task team member organizations, these areas were agreed to as the key ones. So here we have agile project management, adaptability, business acumen, communication, critical thinking, curiosity, product understanding, storytelling, and team player. Now, stepping from the competency area approach, we attempted to match the competency blocks, both core and soft ones, with a simplified statistical production process. And here is the outcome of the attempt. What becomes apparent from this graphic representation is that most of the competency areas span various production stages. We believe that this process approach should help discern the complexity and the challenges related to big data competency building across the organization. And I would just like to add that the competency framework is currently going through a 6-month pilot phase. So I would like to invite you to take a look at it. The link to it will be displayed in a moment. And any feedback, comments, and suggestions are very welcome. Now just some final remarks on the future activities the task team on training, competencies, and capacity development is about to undertake in close cooperation with the subject matter task teams of the UN Global Working Group. What awaits us is the development of online training in such domains as Earth observation, AIS, scanner data, and mobile phone data. We are at the initial stage of this endeavor, with some of the products expected to be put out at the end of this year. The training will be accessible globally, most probably through the UN Global Platform. We intend to link the competencies outlined in the competency framework to the skills the trainee will acquire through the training. In addition, we are planning to develop a tool which will map the competencies from the competency framework to the training developed by the UN Global Working Group and hopefully other training available on the market. It is intended to help the learners to select the training most relevant and most adequate to their needs. So these are our very near future plans. All right, so once again, you're very welcome to contact us for comments, suggestions, and testing of the maturity matrix, as well as the feedback and any suggestions regarding the competency framework. Thank you very much for your attention.